Move on to COVID deaths and safety. Heidi, this one's for you. 45 TfL workers have died from COVID by June of last year. 34 of them were bus drivers. Their families have told us here at BBC Radio London they want to know why. Eventually, barriers were put in, mask wearing became compulsory on buses, but many are saying that for too long at the start of the pandemic, bus drivers were put at serious risk. Is this a failure by Sadiq Khan's administration at City Hall? Do you take responsibility for this?
No. Can I say to start off with that my heart goes out to everyone who has lost someone from COVID, and especially the family, friends, colleagues of London's transport workers who have died, because they have done an absolutely heroic job for us in London. I know that there was no stone left unturned in our efforts at City Hall and TfL to keep our customers and our staff as safe as they possibly could be.
But they had no PPE, and so if somebody came and coughed on them, they got coughed on, and then they caught COVID, and then we know we've just said how many of them died. What do you mean, no stone unturned?
If you think back to this time last year, Vanessa, we were very quick to implement enhanced cleaning regimes. We got the bus operators to seal up the screens around the drivers' cabs. We got the bus operators to reorganise their canteens and their restrooms to enable social distancing. Well, a lot of the measures that went in in a matter of weeks during April. What we do know is that when this virus was ripping through London, that the government, at this time last year, the word furlough barely featured in our consciousness. The letters about shielding hadn't gone out. And so what we did last year was make sure that we put enhanced sick pay in place for the bus drivers and the tube cleaners, so people didn't feel a financial incentive to be coming into work. We also know that as a result of the research that we commissioned from University College London, that a number of the bus drivers who died very sadly in the first part of the pandemic last year contracted the virus either before or shortly after lockdown. And what that research said was that the timing of lockdown was a critical factor. And if we hadn't had the Prime Minister, bumbling on saying that this crisis was going to be over in a matter of weeks at that point in time, and had taken a decision to lock down the country earlier, then I think lives would have been saved. So we did absolutely everything that we could at Transport for London to put those safety measures in place. But it was a very, very difficult time for everyone. And I would just like to reiterate what I said to start off with, that those men and women who came into work to keep the buses running, the tubes running, have done this city a really, really great service, and we should be truly, truly grateful to them.
Let's bring Keith Prince in. They hear Heidi Alexander saying she and the Mayor did everything they possibly could have done. That's what they did. And is she responsible? Do they take responsibility for this, absolutely heart-rending roster of deaths? Answer no. What do you think?
Well, first of all, my heart also goes out to all those who've lost me.
Beg your pardon, it's quite hard to hear you. Speak up a bit.
My heart goes out to all those who have been lost, because they were serving London and their lives were lost, and that's a great tragedy. But can I say that on this one, I do not agree with Heidi at all. I do not think that she or the Mayor did everything that they could. One of the first things they did was to scale back the physical site visits by TfL of the bus depots, so they actually didn't know what was going on. And we've had reports of crammed canteens. What about ferry driving? Drivers all being piled into a car, being driven to where they've got to pick up their bus with no PPE, no protection. This is where the problem has started. The fact that TfL, the Mayor, and even Heidi did not take the necessary measures they could have done to prevent these risks. We have had 1 in 12 bus drivers contracting COVID. That is twice the level of any other occupation in the country. That's twice the level of any other bus drivers across the country. One bus company had 8 in 9 people contract COVID, and yet another only had 1 in 33. What was that one doing right and the others doing wrong?
And what's the answer?
Well, we don't know, because no one bothered to ask. No one's bothered to find out.
What about you? Why haven't you asked or found out?
I'm in the process of talking with bus drivers. I've had meetings with bus drivers. I am working on this, and I'm trying to find out.
All right, well, make sure you let us know when you do find out.
I will.
Let's talk very briefly to Caroline Russell on this, because I want to ask one more big question about transport. Caroline, your thoughts on this? I mean, the COVID fatalities.
Well, I mean, first of all, my heart goes out to every single bereaved family, and also the families of transport workers who are experiencing long COVID symptoms. I think that there are the pandemic exposed huge disproportionality, and one of the things that I found out last July was that the transport workers who had died in London by that point, the majority were Black or Asian. And I think there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done in our city to reduce inequality and to make sure that that everyone is safe from future pandemics and from this ongoing pandemic.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but very quickly, I just need to ask you about this, because otherwise we'll run out of time, and it's the LTN, the low traffic neighbourhoods. So while you're talking, Caroline, maybe you'll just move swiftly to that subject, low traffic neighbourhoods. Decisions for councils rather than City Hall, but they've been highly controversial, as my callers have proved time and time again. Do you feel that the Mayor should get involved on this one, Caroline?
We need to do three things to sort out transport in our city: to tackle the climate emergency, and to tackle the air pollution emergency, and to tackle the crisis of physical inactivity. We need to reduce the number of miles driven, we need to clean up the vehicles on our road, and we need to enable people to get around under their own steam, on foot, by bike, with a mobility scooter, by electric wheelchair, children doing cartwheels on the way to school. So there's three things that need to happen, and they all need to happen together. We need the road pricing to reduce the miles driven. We need the ultra-low emission zone, which the Mayor is bringing in October, but it needs to be bigger. It needs to cover the whole of London. No one should be left out of the clean air zone. And we need measures like low traffic neighbourhoods, which make it a bit less convenient to drive and a bit more convenient and safe to walk.
All right, Caroline, let's just get one line from Heidi Alexander on the low traffic neighbourhoods. Heidi?
Well, I do think that they're part of the answer to reducing the dominance of cars on London's roads. But I also think, introducing school streets where vehicles are restricted from entering those streets at drop-off time and at pick-up time are really positive. We know that there's hundreds of them that have gone in over London, and that they're very well received. Also making sure that we put safer cycling routes in. And over the course of the last 5 years, Sadiq has actually increased the amount of safe cycle routes there are by 260 kilometres. And so this is part of a sort of package of solutions. I do think local councils should listen to their communities and be pragmatic, and where perhaps adjustments and amendments need to be made, they shouldn't be frightened to make them.
Thank you very much. Sorry to interrupt, but if we're going to get to the news, let's quickly have one line on this from Keith Prince on the LTNs. Keith, one line.
Okay, quickly, if Heidi wants to know what went wrong with the buses and the drivers, she should speak to Tom Carney and Michael Liebrick on LTNs. Three things: